All right, welcome everybody to today's live webinar, How to Provide Visibility to SSL Traffic While Maintaining Compliance. And today's webinar, it'll be Array, but also we're glad to also have folks from Webroot on the line as well. And so the SSL Intercept and the SSL security solution that we're going to be talking about today is a combination of what Array brings to the table and also the capabilities that Webroot brings to the table as well to create a comprehensive solution for visibility to SSL traffic, but being able to do that while at the same time maintaining compliance and not running afoul of compliance requirements. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So on today's call, a little bit of housekeeping. My name is Paul Anderson. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Array Networks, and I'll be leading the majority of the Array portion of the call. But also joining me on the line is Mary Elston of Webroot. She is an OEM sales executive. And also Mike Bowden, who's the Director of OEM Sales Engineering for Webroot. So they'll give you both the product and the technical aspects of the Webroot element of our SSL Intercept solution. Just a little bit of logistics and housekeeping before we get going. Within the WebEx Event Center, if you have questions, go ahead and type those questions in as we go, along the way, right? That way we don't get to the end and remember that you had a question and you forgot your question, right? So if you have a question, go ahead and enter those into the chat window or Q&A window as we go. But by the same token, when we get to the end, there'll probably be 2 or 3 questions in there, and that'll give time for the rest of the folks to, if you have a question, you can go ahead and enter your questions while we answer some of the ones that we've collected along the way. So either one, use the chat window or the Q&A window, or if you have some sort of issue, either with audio or some other aspect like that, go ahead and use those methods to let us know. And we always get at the end a very common question about, hey, can we have a copy of this presentation? Is this presentation going to be, this webinar going to be recorded or available, so on and so forth? And the answer is yes. So everybody who's either been registered or attended this webinar gets a PDF version of the presentation, and also in a couple days times afterwards also gets the recorded version of the webinar in case you'd like to share it with some of your colleagues or management or so on and so forth. So just a little bit of quick housekeeping there. So today's topics that we're going to be discussing. I see some folks on the line that that I recognize that probably well aware of Array Networks. I've heard of it before, and I also see some folks that maybe Array is new to you, or you haven't heard of Array Networks before. So I just want to spend a very brief moment giving a little bit of a context and a background about Array as a company and a little bit about the portfolio of products, because we're going to talk about a very specific solution today, and just want to make you aware of the company itself and also some of the other products and solutions in our portfolio. From there, I'm going to talk about just SSL and the rise of SSL in general on the internet, and then talk about what does that mean, right? There's always pros and cons to these types of things, and so SSL is great in many respects, but also it introduces, it's always like a double-edged sword, right? Introduces some challenges as well, and so we want to talk about what are those challenges. And then we want to talk about, we're going to transition from, okay, how do we begin to mitigate some of those challenges? So I'll go into detail about gaining visibility to SSL traffic using Array's SSL Intercept solution. And then I'll turn it over to the folks from Webroot, because they're going to, they're the other side of the coin. They're going to talk about, we provide the visibility to SSL, and they're going to talk a little bit about, okay, how do they mitigate that so that we're looking at the right stuff so that we can maintain compliance? So I'll let them talk to that. And then after that, begin to close it out a little bit and talk about some specific solutions that, so if you're interested and you like the way the solution sounds, you can begin to look at, okay, well, which are the solutions from Array that's going to enable you to do this? And so I just want to touch very briefly on, we've got 2 deployment models that can allow you to do the solution I'm going to talk about today. And so, one of them is maybe a little bit more traditional, and one of them is very unique to Array, and so I want to build your awareness of that. And then I'll share with you, we have some web pages and some documents and some other things that provide further reading and some additional resources that allow you to just get a little bit more information. This is something that's of interest to you, and we'll show you where to go to get those things. And hopefully we've collected a few questions along the way, and we'll open it up for Q&As to myself and Mary and Mike, but also I think maybe even saw that we had Victor on the line today, so if there's any technical questions on the array front as well, we can field that as well. So a little bit about array networks. Array's been around for actually a fair while, well over 15 years, and Array was actually the pioneer in, over time we've transitioned from, simple load balancing to what's now considered application delivery, or ADCs, so the evolution from load balancing to incorporating all kinds of availability features and capabilities, application acceleration capabilities, security capabilities, the ability to do custom traffic management, and so on. So Array was actually the pioneer in traffic management, in moving from simple load balancing and high availability to a much more advanced application delivery type solution. And like I said, we've been doing that for well over 15 years. But we've rounded out our portfolio of products to include other layer 4 through 7 services, such as SSL VPN and secure access, WAN optimization, other functions such as this. And of course, having started out 15 plus years ago, obviously we had hardware appliances, the traditional hardware appliances, and now today, of course, we have virtual appliances, all the solutions we offer, and we even have a very, very unique platform, a virtualized platform that Array has created. It's purpose-built to run networking and security virtual appliances in a very high performance, guaranteed performance, in a very simple way as well. And I'll circle back and touch base on that a little bit later in the presentation. So those are our, we're headquartered here in Silicon Valley. Very strong IP portfolio. So we develop our own stuff. It's how we get to the performance levels and security levels that we do, rather than relying on open source type technologies. Talked a little bit about our products and solutions and our markets. We've evolved. We've always had enterprise customers, SLED customers, government customers, public sector. But more recently, over the last 5-6 years, with the emergence of the cloud, we have many, many more infrastructure as a service type customers, software as a service type customers, and folks deploying us in the cloud as well. And at this point, Array is a global company, so I see attendees here that from several different countries, and but we have a very, very strong presence in North America, Europe, India, Japan, China, and of course some other countries as well. So it's a global organization with about just over 5,000 customers at this point. Some of which you can see here on this slide. This slide very North America centric, but strong family of satisfied customers around the world. So that's just a bit of background about Array Networks. So digging into the topic for today. Let's talk about SSL, or the rise of SSL HTTPS encryption. I think this really hit home with me when I was at RSA this year, and they had somewhat of a big dashboard right above the entrance to the convention, and it had all kinds of information about the traffic, literally the traffic that was traversing I suppose it was the network or the Wi-Fi network at the show. And one of the things that stood out to me was that literally like 75% of the traffic was HTTPS encrypted. No kidding. And that got me curious. It was a bit ironic, right? Because the show was full of security solutions, things to look at this, inspect that, check this, scan that, right? And it just got me thinking that if something is encrypted, how are you going to look at it, right? So a convention center full of solutions to look at and scan and inspect things, and 70–80% of the stuff goes right by it because it's encrypted. And I came back and I did a little bit of research, right? And I found other statistics, and one of which is this is coming from Google, right? And at this point in time, and it could be more now, 70% of web pages loaded in the U.S. are using SSL. 93% of traffic across Google uses SSL. This is from the Google Transparency Report. So you can see that by any metric, no matter what report you're looking at, you're going to find 75–80% of the traffic on the internet is now SSL encrypted. And so, yeah, what does that mean? That's going to have some impact. Okay. The first one is this kind of has two different challenges depending on which direction you go, right? So The first challenge is what I was just describing earlier, which is that if you take security solutions, whether it's a next-gen firewall, IPS, IDS, advanced threat protection, data loss prevention, anything, any kind of security investments, all these things begin to lose visibility and become ineffective, in the face of that SSL encryption. So, the SSL protects the data in transit. However, the hackers are using the quote-unquote cloak of SSL to deliver malicious payloads directly into applications, networks, and data centers. So this is the challenge now. They're kind of using what should be providing you security, and they turn that back on you, and is now using that to hide their activity and launch the attacks through these encrypted connections that you have no ability to mitigate. Right? So this is one challenge. The other way to look at it is, okay, well, if that's the case, I'm going to use, a firewall, or I'm going to turn on SSL. If that platform has the ability to decrypt SSL, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to try to decrypt this SSL, and then once I can get to clear text and I can look at this traffic, then I'm going to do what this particular product or solution was supposed to do. Okay, only problem is when you ask those types of appliances, and it doesn't matter whether it's a virtual appliance or a hardware appliance, when you ask these products that aren't really designed to do heavy-duty SSL, when you ask them to do that, and considering how much traffic is now SSL encrypted, their performance just nosedives, right? And you can see here, maybe the best one here was maybe like a Juniper firewall, but I mean, if you look at the rest of the solutions here, when they begin to turn on SSL and ask for the decryption so we can gain visibility, you see that the performance, 80%, 96% decrease in terms of their ability to handle it. So you're really stuck with a situation here where you're, I don't want to say damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're in a bad spot. If you don't decrypt and you don't look at it, then you're vulnerable to attack. If you decide, if I need to look at it, I'm going to ask my machine to do it, then the performance goes down and productivity and the experience and everything like that takes a big hit. And so it's a pickle. You're caught in a bad spot there because of just the rise of SSL and what it means. Okay? So, that's the context, and that sets the stage for this SSL intercept solution. And in broad strokes, what we're doing here is we're using a product that was always designed, where SSL and SSL encrypt was always a fundamental piece of this particular product, right? So the application delivery controller, one of the things that it's always done since the get-go is it is loaded with purpose-built crypto cards, and it was always designed to offload SSL from servers. It's always been the best product to do SSL offload. So the idea here is, okay, you know what, we have to look at this traffic. And if we have to look at it, that means we have to do SSL on something that's not going to kill the performance of the security device. And so, that leads us to the solution, where essentially what you're seeing here is you're seeing the Array Networks SSL Intercept, which is essentially a very, very high-powered array application delivery controller that's, has very, very high-end and multiple crypto cards, hardware-accelerated crypto cards built into it. And what you're doing is you're using this appliance to intercept the SSL traffic at scale. And then what you do is you create a bit of a closed loop, whether you want to call it a decrypt zone or a security zone or a security enclave. I've heard some customers calling this. But you create a zone there for the clear text traffic. And now you can send that decrypted traffic to anything. It could be, IDS, IPS, ATP, next-gen firewall. It can even be things like if you want to do a one-way trip to a tap, to just collect data, you can do that as well. And then, once you've been able to either capture that data and or do something to that data, if you like, then it comes back to the array appliance where it becomes re-encrypted and passed on its way. And so now you've been able to enjoy the security benefits or the security in transit benefits of SSL encryption, but you haven't allowed that encrypted tunnel to become a place where hackers and other malicious attacks can take place. And you're able to do this at scale. Now these security appliances that are in the security enclave can run in their power band, do what they're supposed to do, and you have a solution that addresses the challenges that I spelled out earlier. Okay? This is just a summary of it. So Array's SSL intercept solution with the SSLI capability, we act as a proxy to enable, quote-unquote, man-in-the-middle SSL inspection at scale. The hardware-accelerated SSL offloads compute-intensive decrypt-encrypt from the inspection solutions, enabling to operate in their power band. The intercepted traffic is routed to the decrypt zone or security enclave to guard against attack, intrusion, and data exfiltration, then re-encrypted and forwarded to the final destination. And now switching gears a little bit to the web root element of today's webinar. What we do is we use the web root Bright Cloud, the threat intelligence service. Not only can that product protect against a diverse set of threats, but it also provides the web classification that's going to ensure that sensitive traffic is processed appropriately. And I have one more slide of setup before I hand it over to the folks from WebRoot to discuss their element of this solution. So where do they slot into this and why? So this goes back to the title of the webinar, which is Gaining Visibility While Maintaining Compliance. So visibility to SSL traffic can significantly improve overall security. However, some traffic and user activity, it can't be interfered with. For example, health records, financial transactions, government business, and others. To maintain compliance, the SSL intercept solution must be able to selectively inspect traffic, right? So, if somebody is doing something where it's HIPAA related, right? And, if you decrypt, take a look at that traffic, then you're going to be in trouble, right? And the same holds true for, Sarbanes or other financial compliance regulations and things of this nature. So you have to be able to say, hey, I can look at the bulk of this traffic and inspect that to improve my security, but as much as I'd like to, this other stuff is restricted, and I do not want to look at that stuff. And you have to be able to do that in a very, very reliable way to not run afoul of compliance for your organization. And you can see that in this diagram here. This is a kind of a typical high availability type configuration for SSL intercept. And you can see I threw out some examples of some customers we have, like the Humana, Needham Bank, State of New Jersey, other government, financial, healthcare, things of this nature, where they may have some of this traffic that by law they're not allowed to look at. And what WebRoot does, it's a URL classification service, and you can kind of see where this is going, is they're ultra reliable in defining what kind of traffic, even when it's HTTPS encrypted, they're able to understand the URL, where it's coming from, what kind of traffic that is, and by extension then whether or not the solution should or should not decrypt that traffic. And then the rest of the solution is very similar to what I've already described. So that's the setup there, and I believe that brings me to your portion here, Mary, and let me just quickly see if I can give you control here.
All right.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to pass you the keyboard and mouse control here. And you should see that in a moment.
I just saw it. Thank you.
And you should be good to advance these slides.
All right. Can you hear me just fine, Paul?
I can.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you. And again, thanks to you, Paul and Yancey, for including Mike and me in today's webinar. We're delighted to be here. Well, let's go ahead and build a little bit on what we've been talking about with respect to Paul's introduction and the detail that's going on with the SSLI intercept thought. And before we get too deeply into that, we want to take a look at who WebRoot Bright Cloud is. Not sure if you know us, but we'd like to give you a little bit more detail as to why we do what we do and how we got here. Well, for starters, you're seeing in front of you a slide that depicts the fact that WebRoot Bright Cloud actually has, as a company overall, 3 divisions. Many people, when we say, do you know who we are, they raise their hand and they say, yes, I'm using your endpoint protection. Well, that's terrific because that is our consumer division. We have an endpoint antivirus that many consumers use. Another division that we have is our endpoint protection for small business with our 13,000 MSP partners. And then the third division is the one we're working with today, and that's where Mike and I are. We are part of our OEM Threat Intelligence Group, and that is where Bright Cloud comes into play. With respect to Bright Cloud and where it fits with WebRoot, WebRoot's been around as a company for about 20 years. We acquired BrightCloud 8 years ago, and with that, we acquired the tremendous capability to provide our machine learning threat intelligence. We, in connection with that capability, have over 80 OEM threat intelligence partners. So in the center of this slide, you see reference to our being the #1 OEM threat intelligence provider in the world. With those 80 partners, we are covering major solution providers, such as Array, who have embedded our threat intelligence in their product. So that's great in itself, but what it also does is gives Array the quiet, brawny cybersecurity strength that BrightCloud provides, always working in the background, protecting and providing compliance. Let's talk a little bit now about what that means with respect to how Webroot and BrightCloud make a distinction for you when it comes to Array and SSLI. So when you look at all of this information, you think, wow, there's a lot going on here. There's so many threats that are being discovered daily. And this is really important because this is what makes a tremendous distinction for Webroot BrightCloud. And if you think about numbers being able to having a natural way to tell a story, the story is jumping out at us when it comes to these factors that you're looking at right now. The threats associated with the internet are incredibly dynamic, and Webroot is one of the only providers that provides the most dynamic data out there. In other words, our data is the most up-to-date. If you're thinking about 100,000 new malicious URL, or rather IPs that are discovered every day, as in the center of this slide, or the 25,000 new malicious URLs, et cetera, all of those are being identified by Webroot BrightCloud at lightning fast speed. So with our dynamic data and the incredible amount of updates that we generate every single day, you have the ability to look at the most up-to-date, effective, and accurate data when it comes to compliance and protection. And that takes into account malware, ransomware, cryptoware, and all kinds of other things that could potentially be malicious traffic. So as we speak to that dynamic capability that really is distinguished by Webroot BrightCloud, how do we actually do it? What is it that makes it so incredibly effective? And when we go to our machine learning thought, that's where you start seeing all of those components come together. Our machine learning capabilities are backed by over 65 patents, and we generate another 12 to 15 new patents a year. And why is that important? Because the state of malicious content is constantly changing. And with that, we are able to look at a tremendous number of input characteristics, 10 million of them, on every internet object we classify. So with our machine learning, we collect or capture that data. We analyze it, classify it, and publish it in the form of our BrightCloud Threat Intelligence. But there's more to the story, and what goes with that is that we can do it with tremendous capability with respect to how we classify that information and how we classify what's considered to be sensitive, what should be decrypted or encrypted or otherwise. And we do that by training the machine model learning that we have with over 40 million weights. That means that we take into account massive amounts of related information before we classify and score a trustworthy or malicious factor associated with any IP or URL. And then again, more still to the story, because what happens now as we classify millions of internet objects every day, we do that with tremendous scale and tremendous speed. So you get the performance you need with that classification with your Array SSL. You also get a tremendous amount of protection and compliance at the same time. And this is really important because with that compliance, you have things moving around in the background constantly as on the internet, as we all know, and you want to make sure that you have the latest up-to-date dynamic data that BrightCloud provides. Now, with that changing data, there's one more thought I want to make sure that you're aware of. We know that the data is changing so much that BrightCloud has to change with it. And with that in mind, our machine learning teaches itself up to 1,000 new models a day just to keep up with the changing pace of malicious traffic. Another way to think about that is in 2018, for the first half of the year, about 87% of threats were malware, including ransomware, and cryptojacking. So that's a big change because 2017 saw a lot of ransomware traffic, and that's changing over to a lot more in the cryptojacking area. And those types of machine learning models that our BrightCloud Threat Intelligence teaches itself is changing dynamically all the time, and we are changing with it to make sure that Array has the latest threat intelligence in connection with the solutions they bring to you. So now let's think about one other aspect of this, and going right back to the slide that you saw just a few moments ago with Paul, tying in together our Bright Cloud capabilities with what that means to the SSLI solution from Array. Well, think about it again. I'll mention something else that you saw on the slide a minute ago. If 70% of web pages loaded in the United States use SSL and would benefit from Bright Cloud web classification, then you have the tremendous scale and efficacy and accuracy that goes with it by virtue of Bright Cloud Threat Intelligence being part of this solution. What's really great about this, too, is the power and performance. So don't worry about how much traffic you have. Don't worry about if it's going to be taken care of on that basis of decryption and encryption on a fast level. It's going to happen incredibly fast. You're going to get the classification you need in an amazingly quick manner by virtue of the way threat intelligence from Bright Cloud works with Array. And then finally, on top of that, we have over 82 different categories associated with our web classification service. That means that sensitive traffic can be processed the right way. You can get the most dynamic data you need for high caliber compliance and use all of the features and functions of Array's SSL Intercept in the best possible way to benefit your business. And with that thought and the web classification capabilities that we provide in connection with Bright Cloud, I'm going to hand it off to Mike and give him the opportunity to share a little bit more depth on how web classification works.
All right. Thank you, Mary. This is Paul here. I'm going to just take a quick moment to get the controls here, hand it over to Mike. So give me a quick second. And let's see here. Oh, okay, already a panelist, very good. All right, this should be coming up here momentarily. All right, Mike, let me know if you are able to advance the slide.
Okay, I clicked once, but it doesn't appear to.
There it is.
One more.
Have it.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
One more time, maybe.
Bit of delay. I need to make sure I don't go too fast. All right. In order for Array's SSL Intercept devices to be able to make accurate decisions on every packet coming through, we need to have visibility and categorization and reputation calculated on every single page on the Internet. And Webroot's distinction in the industry is that we have built a scalable infrastructure to be able to go and crawl the entire Internet, every single domain out of the 600 million active domains, and crawl it and categorize it down to the individual page level, which is trillions of pages. And to keep that information fresh, we have to recrawl the entire Internet down to the page level about every 90 days. Because the content out there is very dynamic. People are improving it, changing it for style, for content, et cetera. So we have to keep on top of all of that. How do we get the visibility of all of the threats? It is because we have built the world's largest threat intelligence gathering network that exists in the world. There's actually over 60 million live sensors in every company, in every country, all around the world, feeding telemetry into our cloud 24 hours a day as their users go to the Internet. We get to see all of the URLs that those users go to. So we have data coming in from many different perspectives. We have data coming in from certain threat feeds that are gaps in our own personal sensor network. Those might be government sources, law enforcement, denial of service, things that we can't create because you have to be the victim of those types of attacks in order to see them. So we do get threat feeds from some reputable partners. We have a sensor network with tens of thousands of sensors that are victim machines, spam traps, open proxies, etc., mail gateways, database servers, things like that looking to be attacked. We have an enormous crawling infrastructure. We also get data from over 40 million end users. And those are consumers, small business users, and some enterprise users that use our own endpoint product. So we're getting data in real time from all of those different sensors coming into our cloud, where we're using now 5th generation machine learning. It's the same type of machine learning that is used to do genome processing, facial recognition, and things like that, but it's very compute intensive. So we had to immediately go to a distributed cloud architecture just to have enough horsepower to be able to do that type of an algorithm at 60,000 web pages per second, what have you, which is what we need to keep up with the growth of the internet. So we analyze all of that with 5th generation machine learning, and then we publish web content classification, reputation, IP reputation, file reputation, etc., through RESTful APIs, which are then consumed by our threat intelligence partners like Array, who take it into their devices, and then they become another sensor on our network. So we're not seeing data from their customers' traffic and what have you, but we're seeing URLs that potentially have not been seen by anybody else, because it may be a handcrafted, targeted phishing attack against particular people at a particular company or what have you. But if they look it up locally in their database and it's not there, then it will send that to our cloud to say, hey, you need to go crawl this so that we can have a good classification for it. All right. By the numbers, like I said, we have built a massive cloud-based infrastructure. We have 27 billion normalized URLs in our cloud database, representing trillions of individual pages. We cover all 600 million registered domains. We've got IP intelligence on the entire public IPv4 address space of 4.3 billion. We have over 15 billion file behaviors for identifying pieces of malware. We've torn apart over 62 million mobile apps, figured out exactly what permissions do they claim to use, what ones do they actually use, what types of URLs and IPs do they talk to, and what have you. And we've got over 57 million connected sensors into our cloud. Because we're embedded in the devices that people use to access the internet, the routers, the web gateways, the load balancers, things like that, we actually get to see about 95% of the global internet traffic without having to be directly tapped into the backbone of the internet. But we see it at the company level, at the edge devices that people go to the internet with. So our web classification provides functionality in 3 different use cases. Security, we're able to provide knowledge or intelligence on the URLs that users should not go to, because we know that they're either phishing sites or malware sites, drive-by download sites, botnets, spam sources, etc., different types of things. The web classification can also be used for compliance and policy management, acceptable use policies of the internet, policies like SSI or SSL intercept. You're not allowed to decrypt things that are healthcare related or legal related, what have you. So companies like Array are using our categorization to do that policy management. And it can also be used for bandwidth optimization. If our threat intelligence can help you block unwanted malicious traffic, then the machine has available resources to handle the good traffic, what have you, and boost up and be able to have capacity for more users. Okay, moving on. Okay, our machine learning drives our classification. Like I said, we have evolved now to 5th generation machine learning called maximum entropy discrimination. We do millions of websites every day. Every single one of our crawlers is able to classify as much as 60,000 web pages per second, and we have thousands of those running, so you can see how it scales up. Our threat intelligence is published globally to every device that uses our threat intelligence, and it's updated every 5 minutes. We can detect a new threat happening somewhere in the world analyze it in our cloud, push it out through our publishing mechanisms, and it can be active in every one of those devices in less than 5 minutes. We have to recrawl the entire internet about every 90 days. All of our threat URLs, we actually have to recrawl every single day to revet that it is still a malware site, that it hasn't been taken down or replaced with some other type of content, because the bane of the security industry is false positives, things that are based on stale data and routing decisions being blocked because something used to be a malware site, but it no longer is, and what have you. So we strive by using our 5-minute updates, and what have you, to eliminate that from happening anymore. And lastly, we take into consideration more than just the content that we see on a particular web page to decide what type of content it is, because a lot of sites are very heavily in images, what have you, which kind of hide the content if you can't read those images. So we use website registration data, we use hosting information, we use IP registration information, geolocation information, many different things other than just the content on a page to be able to determine its risk level or its specific type of content. All right, that concludes our presentation today on the WebRoot Web Intelligence Gathering Network and what have you, and how we get the data that we supply to Array's devices so that they can make accurate real-time decisions as packets flow through their device and what have you. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Mary, as well, before that. So what I want to do, so at this point I think you have a pretty good understanding of the Array component of the solution, the overall solution, and how the WebRoot Bright Cloud URL classification service fits into the overall solution. In order to give you that visibility to SSL traffic, but at the same time being able to maintain compliance, so best of both worlds. So what I'm going to do in the next 5 or so minutes is I'm actually going to talk about 2 different deployment models, and each one has a little bit of, I suppose, a unique advantage, right, or something that it does particularly well. So the first deployment model I'm going to talk about here is the use of Array's dedicated application delivery controller product in order to do the SSL intercept solution. So these products that you're looking at here, they're exactly what that I was talking about earlier in the presentation. The way they're deployed is they're deployed exactly how you saw on the graphics that I showed for SSL intercept. And the point that I want to make here is that yes, there are other vendors in the market that, there are other ADCs in the market, right? And so a logical question would be, okay, tell me a little bit about, how Array differentiates from, let's say, another provider of ADC that could do SSL offload and potentially do SSL intercept. And so what I'll say is that it comes down to, raw horsepower. The first thing is Array's ability to not only support RSA ciphers, but also to support ECC ciphers, and to support ECC ciphers at a scale that's unmatched by any of the competition. And I'm giving you a little bit of an under the hood look here at 2 of our high-end ADCs and what we bring to the table in terms of the hardware accelerated crypto capability that's on board on our products. And so, you can look at here at the APV 9800, and you can see right away, our ability to do, 80 gig in SSL throughput, 110 SSL TPS for RSA ciphers, 75K TPS for ECC ciphers, right? And you can see a little bit of some of the interfaces and how we do some of the SSL crypto there on board. So not only do you have the hardware accelerated SSL, but also the NICs and the interfaces that's needed to enable a SSLI solution like this. If you want to go even more scalable here, you look at something like the APV 11800 right here, where you're looking at 4 combo card, piggyback combo cards that are giving you your interfaces, but also giving you your hardware accelerated SSL on board as well. And you can see in this case, these are very conservative estimates here. The performance can even be even greater, but a minimum of 120 gig in terms of SSL throughput, 165K TPS for RSA ciphers, and 115K TPS for ECC ciphers. So really what you're looking at with Array is just scalability, performance, horsepower, and also dollar per SSL TPS. When you really just want to do SSL intercept and SSL offload, in terms of price performance, it's unmatched with these dedicated appliances from Array. And I think, just to reiterate some of the differentiators and some of the strong suits of the Array ADC appliance performance. So a fault-tolerant, non-blocking, multi-thread packet process engine, purpose-built SSL stack, and streamlined for maximum performance. So those are those elements that are going into generating the performance you saw in the previous slide. Security, in addition to having developed our own SSL stack, in the first place, in order for us to achieve, very high levels of performance, the other thing that we did at the same time, or through that process, is it became a very, very buttoned-down SSL stack and much more secure than some of the open SSL implementations that you see on some of our competitors. So things like Heartbleed, Shell Shock, Ghost, Drown, other open SSL vulnerabilities that many folks had to scramble to patch and to hunt down and so on, Array was never affected by any of these types of vulnerabilities. So extremely high performance, much more secure, and future-proof. As I mentioned earlier, there are other solutions that do SSL intercept, but if you go and look for, some of these ECC-type encryption ciphers, you're going to find that they maybe there's one model that supports it, but it supports it at a very low level. The performance just isn't there, right? And so with Array, the scalability and performance and price performance is there. Whether you're using the RSA cipher or the ECC cipher, we support that from the entry level all the way through to the highest end. And you can migrate from one to the other on your terms when it's right for you. And the cost efficiency, right, significantly lower dollar per TPS versus other solutions on the market. So, that is the deployment model that, has an emphasis on, raw horsepower performance, scalability, price performance. But I want to introduce you to another deployment model, one that is unique to Array. And it goes back to the very first slide when I talked about a unique product we had called a Network Functions Platform, a virtualized platform, hardware platform developed by Array, but unlike a general purpose server, this particular platform was built from the ground up to do networking and security virtual appliances. And because of that, we can deliver for virtual appliances, we can deliver hardware-like performance, we can deliver guaranteed performance, and we can also get you up and running with virtual network functions in a very, very simple, streamlined way. And just like our ADCs, these products come with the built-in hardware-accelerated crypto cards. So they're unlike a general-purpose server that really is going to get bogged down trying to do SSL. These products here are going to excel. And so this diagram shows you a little bit here that this platform, which you run networking security virtual appliances on it, like a server, it's agile. It can lower CapEx, OpEx, portable, agile, et cetera, but like a dedicated appliance, it's very simple, and it can give you guaranteed performance and hardware-like performance. And I'll show you how that fits into the, and I'll skip over this just for a little bit for the sake of time, or I won't go too far into this particular slide, but yes, this solution gives you the agility of virtualization, hardware-like SLAs, simplified deployment, vendor-neutral platform. You can deploy a networking or security virtual appliance from any vendor, not just Array, on this platform, and of course, with all those things combined, it drives cost efficiency and value. So let's take a look at what it looks like, right? So rather than having a solution where you have an ADC, and then that ADC is doing the SSL intercept and SSL offload, and then creating kind of a closed-loop security enclave and sending the traffic, clear text traffic to other appliances, to other boxes, what you can do with this solution is you can actually take the security solutions that you want to have a look at and inspect the clear text traffic, whether that's a nested firewall, a TAP, IPS, IDS. You can take virtual appliances from any vendor and you can run them on this platform, but you can bookend them with the ADC solution, which is doing your SSL offload, your SSL intercept. So in this solution, you have a virtualized hardware platform from Array, right, a network functions platform. You hit a virtual ADC, which taps into our hardware-accelerated crypto cards and does the SSL decrypt at scale very, very efficiently. Now, without having to leave the appliance, you can service chain and route the clear text traffic within the box to other networking or other security virtual appliances running on that box. They can do what they need to do, and then you can re-encrypt and send it on its way. And now you've had a single box where that clear text traffic never had a chance to even leave the box. It's all self-contained and very secure. So high performance, extremely secure, and also it's very easy to swap out and or bolster, the kind of security services that are applied to the data flow, because it's all virtual appliances. If you say, oh, you know what, I want to add this type of inspection into that data flow, I don't need to put a new whole box in and attach the cables and do this and send a guy out and everything else. No, you can just remotely stand up a virtual appliance, put it in a service chain, and you've now improved your security. So it's a very unique approach. And so does it have the full scale and horsepower of the solution that I showed on the previous slide? No. It's doing a number of things on this platform, and so it's not going to reach exact same scale as our ADC, but it's a very unique and very secure approach. And, where the requirements meet up with this approach, I think it can be very, very compelling. So two different models there, one with a performance focus and one with perhaps more of a secure and agility focus as well. And I think this just summarizes some of those thoughts that I was articulating there. So the AVX is the network functions platform, purpose-built to host security and networking virtual appliances. In contrast to the general purpose servers, the AVX supports guaranteed hardware-like performance and pre-configured for simplified CA deployment. Using the AVX, the decrypt zone becomes a self-contained, hyper-secure ecosystem on the platform itself. And Array virtual ADCs provide the SSLI, high availability and traffic management. The third-party virtual appliances provide the multi-layer security and traffic inspection. And you can flexibly service chain security services to adapt to a changing threat landscape. And of course, the web root component of the solution remains the same. It's simply called on by the virtual ADC that's running on the platform, and it provides exactly all the same benefits from web root, regardless of which deployment model you choose. And finally, to kind of bring things to a conclusion here, so we have a lot of docs. So, today has been a bit of an overview, both of the entire solution, and then drilling down a little bit into the Array element and the web root element of it. But it goes much deeper in terms of actually deploying this thing. There's a lot of documentation and additional information that we can provide for those that are interested in the solution and want to take a little deeper, try it out, so on and so forth. So we have deployment guides, we have solution briefs, we've got free downloads from our download center so that you can get your hands on the technology and these sorts of things. So I want to highlight that, and I'll include links to some of these things in my email follow-up, but if you want to get started or if you have questions, of course, just reach out and we can provide you, either put you in contact with the right people or provide you with the right information. And so with that, I will open it up to Q&A, and Yancey, I'll leave it to you to rattle through some of these questions if we have any. And while we're doing these questions, it looks like we have a few questions. So while I field these, if anybody has any additional questions, go ahead and type them in, and we've got about 10 minutes, so we should be able to get to them, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. So yeah, we do have a few questions here from the chat. The first one is how does SSLI decrypt and then encrypt the traffic without knowing the key?
Yeah, I think we just, I can let Victor talk to this a little bit, but I think basically the certificate just gets imported to our platform. So we just move the location of the certificate to our platform, and then we're able to essentially be trusted and then be able to decrypt the traffic. But Victor, are you able to, are you on the line and able to speak? Let me double check here. He may be muted, so let me just quickly pop out of here and see if I can get an answer. Yeah, give me one moment here, and we should be able to field this. All right. Yeah, you know what? I don't see a telephone next to his name there. That's okay. Yeah, I'll circle back and provide a little bit more detailed information, but the bottom line is, yes, essentially the certificate gets moved onto the SSL intercept solution so that then, of course, you're able to intercept that traffic without kicking back a certificate warning error or some sort of error message like that to the end user that's going to cause them some sort of alarm like, hey, is this a man-in-the-middle attack, or to raise those kinds of concerns, right? So you're basically, you're deploying this SSL intercept solution, within the bounds of your network, and you're essentially moving the certificate from, the server onto the platform, which gives you the ability there to, decrypt that traffic, take a look without raising any alarms. Next.
Okay, next question is, for your SSL intercept solution, are you able to do inbound and outbound, and as well as north and south?
Yes. So, in the context of this solution that we talked about today, it tends to be more of a forward proxy type solution with the web root URL classification built into it. But the product, the ABC is a reverse proxy product, and so we're able to do the SSL intercept solution can be deployed both for inbound and for outbound traffic. And in addition, we're seeing some requests for the ability to do this SSL inspection also on east-west traffic within the data center. The only caveat to that is that each one of those is somewhat of its own deployment or its own solution. So if you want to do inbound, outbound, east-west, you have to kind of break that problem down and approach them individually, but it can be done. Next. Okay, great. In addition to firewalls, what other solutions are typically deployed with an SSL intercept solution? Yeah, I would say it's sky's the limit in a way. It could be anything. So there are some solutions that are more, I guess, inline type solutions where you want to service chain it to something that just is going to inspect it, and then the traffic carries on its, on its way and gets re-encrypted and passed on. And this could be a next-gen firewall, IPS, IDS, DDoS, web app firewall, data leakage prevention, you name it. And there are other solutions where we simply decrypt and it's more passive and it's mirrored. So we'll decrypt traffic, we'll clone and mirror that traffic and send that out to something like like for instance a Gigam on tap or something that's sitting there just collecting data, which is going to get scanned and processed later to look for anomalies and security issues and things like that. But the traffic doesn't, that mirrored clone traffic doesn't go on its way to its end destination. The traffic simply just gets, once it's been mirrored, cloned, and sent to a tap, it just gets re-encrypted and passed on its way. So, but to answer the question, it can be any number of security solutions, including ones that are inline or ones that are passive or you name it. Okay, this looks like probably the last question here. Are the array and web root solutions two different products? How can they be purchased? Okay, kind of a yes. They're two different products or two complementary products, but purchasing this overall or this combined solution is actually very simple, right? So working with WebRoot, all their URL classification services that I mentioned today are skewed up on the Array Network's press list, right? So if you want to buy an SSL intercept solution, it's very, very easy. You can just buy it all from Array. And we have the SKUs for the array components of it. We have a SKU for the URL classification, and that may be based on the capacity used or something of this nature, or how much throughput or something of this nature. We may have a few different SKU levels there for that, but it's very streamlined. They're two different products, but they can both be purchased from Array. It's very easy. They have their own SKUs, and just simple stuff. I thought I saw, can you check one more time? I could have sworn I saw one more question pop through there. No? No, I think, let me check one thing here. I saw something pop up real quick.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, that's it. All right, so it looks like that's it for the questions, and pretty good timing here, 2 minutes in front of the hour, so I think that was just about perfect. But before we go, I'd like to just say a big thank you to Mary and to Mike as well for taking the time to join us here today and to describe the WebRoot as a company, but also the WebRoot solution as it applies to the Array's SSL intercept solution. So thank you to you guys.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Have a great day.
And all right, thank you. And yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and look for an email from me in, probably today or tomorrow with some of this information, the presentation, and maybe in a day or two a link to the recording. And with that, we'll conclude today's webinar, and we hope to catch you on a future webinar. Thank you.